Hey everybody, welcome to the Soul Food Priest podcast with Father Ben. It's great to have you. As always, I'm here with Khira and Silvia. How you guys doing?
Great.
Yeah.
I think I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's the
I'm
summer.
tired.
The
It's
kids are home
summertime.
all the time. We love them. Yes,
Yeah.
we love them.
We do.
We love them.
Yeah.
But they're home all the time.
Yeah.
They're eating all the food.
They
you-
are.
Not all of us have that problem.
But we love them.
Yeah, we do love them, and
lot.
it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But I have to say, it's kind of nice to go home, and it's me and my big image of Julia Child. I mean, I love children, and I say I love marriage, and I love that I'm not married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we love you too.
Yeah. It's
We don't hate him.
No.
Lucky.
It's just a quiet house. Because I mean, literally this weekend, like, I got rid of one person in the house. That sounds funny. It was my husband. He went on retreat. I didn't get rid of him. He went on retreat.
Now
but I
say
gave him
this
permission.
again so that we can
Yeah,
we can
I know.
have this for
I gave
posterity.
him permission.
Uh-huh. So,
But- so-
maybe from his perspective, he got paroled.
Well, for him,
Oh, burn.
he got to, yeah. That was totally it.
Did
I
I
was
just
like,
say
yes,
burn?
you can
Have
go.
you heard back from him, by the way? Do you know where he's
Yeah,
at?
he did come back yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah, when
Poor
he
guy.
said
Is
he
that a good
would.
thing?
I know it was very good.
Yeah,
It was
good.
I was ready for him to come back.
You
but
were.
Yeah, so
Well, good.
needless to say, I have 4 boys, 1 girl, and a husband, obviously. But
Happy to hear that.
so there's one male leaves, but then in exchange, I get 2 teenage
Oh.
boys in the house too. So I was like, okay. So on the weekends where they should be relaxing, there is some relaxing, but then all of a sudden it's like it's just a revolving door. And then when you're cooking for 2 more teenage boys or what? Yeah.
I know I've
a
asked
lot.
you this, but like when you guys go grocery shopping, because you have all these teenagers, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, do you buy enough for half of Texas when you go?
We can't.
I mean,
We
'Cause
should.
I can imagine.
Okay, we should.
We should.
And it probably empties within a week.
Yeah.
So
wow.
I want to be one of those moms that has like this snack area and all the kids. You're constantly feeding
have
the
this
kids.
snack.
But ours are gone like that. They're just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember during COVID, where we had to like have all this food
Yeah.
and you had to like
Sanitize it before
yes,
you brought it in.
and then
Yeah.
I was like making sure nobody
Yeah.
was eating like overeating because we didn't know when we were going to be able to go to the store
yeah,
again.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
and we
I
have
have
to.
pictures.
We kind of laugh because like my husband will be like, because he's the one that does the grocery shopping now, and I mean he's like, no. And he's like rationing food. I mean, and it
Wow.
sounds horrible. That sounds absolutely terrible. However, if kitchen is open all the time,
Yep.
They'll eat all the
they'll
time.
eat all the time. And 2 years ago, a bag of chips at Aldi was 89 cents. Now that same bag of chips is almost $3 or $4.
Wow.
At Aldi. So we used to have like an endless supply of chips for 89 cents you could, but like not now at like $3 a bag. And then
How's the therapy going?
So my kids at our house have this saying where we finish lunch or dinner and then they'll look over, can I get something after? And I was like, you just ate.
we just ate.
And I was like,
Wow.
no. They're
Wow.
like, okay.
So
we need Father Ben to come to our house to cook, and because Father Ben doesn't do anything small, like when he cooks, it's just always
go big or go home, baby.
Yes. So we just need you to come
We're
in
okay.
from time to time.
We're
Or,
okay.
you know, another option would be, I don't know, maybe you could cook more. Like when instead of me coming, you could just make more food. That would actually be easier, and I'd save gas.
Okay, I guess you're right.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
you're
I
right.
mean,
this is the perfect
it's a-
episode to talk about this. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Okay. So, speaking of which, I read this book recently that I love.
Uh-huh.
It's called Faith and Food by a guy named Norman Virba from Duke University. And it's all about how food is intertwined with faith.
Yes.
And I was like, that's apropos
Yeah.
for our podcast.
I mean, hello. When did he write this book?
It was a while ago. I think it's over 10 years old.
Okay.
And but it was really good. It was really good. And he was talking about how faith is like intertwined, for instance, all throughout the Bible, intertwined with food in very pivotal times. So, for instance, a covenant bond with, like, for instance, in Abel, the book of Genesis, with a Holocaust offering, offering first fruits. God, you've given us so much. A blessing. And then especially with provisions, like God's given us so much, the feeding of the 5,000, feeding of the 4,000, all this. It's really so beautiful. And then, of course, what my personal favorite, after Jesus rises from the dead, he appears to the apostles and says, do you have anything to eat? And I'm like, wow, because dying on the cross will take it out of you. I mean, and so, like, he was probably hungry.
Yep.
And so, if the apostles were Mexican, he'd probably ask for a taco.
My favorite's probably when the water was turned into wine, but just saying.
Oh, yeah, right. A valid point. Valid point. Yeah.
Some nights we sit there, try to pray over her.
Like, what do you think if the apostles were from Mexico? Like, what do you think Jesus would want to eat?
Well, for sure, the host wouldn't be bread; it would probably be tortillas. And the wine would probably be tequila.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, he was a smart man.
He was. He was.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting.
Just tortillas.
If the apostles were French, he would have said, "Peace be with you. Do you have any creme brulee?"
There you go.
Man, that sounds amazing.
Or if he was
now.
in, let's see if he was in maybe Italy, and
What do you think?
he'd say,
A pizza?
"Peace be with you." Buongiorno.
Bonjour.
Yeah.
Love it.
Do you have any pasta? I'd love some pasta.
Some carbonara.
I mean, really. Yeah.
Some tacos for sure.
Yeah. So I know everybody's saying, "Gosh, Father Ben's a heretic now," but it is really incredible that this book is so fantastic because it kind of goes through everything, goes through all these points, and I was reading, I was like, yes, it's so good, and then the very time I was reading this book, I talked to one of the women in our parish. And she's from Puebla, which we've talked about before, from Puebla, where they make mole. Mole has over 30 ingredients.
Yep.
And so it's really beautiful. We were talking about, she was just saying how everyone in the family kind of takes part in this, and they're all active in the preparation of mole rojo.
Yep.
They have mole verde, mole rojo.
Yep.
And so it's really fascinating. I was it's neat how God kind of brings us together.
Mundo is from Puebla. So he makes mole from scratch. I mean,
it takes a long time.
I just buy the pre-made stuff that you like add and enhance.
Yeah.
But he makes it from scratch, and he tells a story that in the small towns, the communities will pick one family per year where they bring Our Lady of Ocotlan from the church, and they have a procession around the town, and one of the families has to feed the whole town.
Wow.
So they make mole, and the whole family gets together. So like you said, it's a family event, and they make mole for the entire town.
That's amazing.
The entire town.
Wow.
And
That's
it's
amazing.
an honor to do that. Nobody gives you money. Like
Right.
you host everything. You pay for everything. You feed the
Wow.
whole town.
Wow, and I would imagine they probably have like one family that's known for making the best.
Probably.
mole.
Yeah. I was going to say,
Yeah.
like, kind of as this competition.
Yeah,
It's
probably.
it's interesting. So one of the families I was talking to the other night, they said they were telling me that they put like ground up cookies in there, like ginger snaps or sometimes vanilla wafers to thicken it,
Yep.
Oh.
and which I in a million years would have never thought about doing.
Yeah.
But
No.
fantastic. But it's like maybe to that point we're talking about family. One of the things that people will talk about or ask us about, right, is the issue of same-sex attraction. Father, like, what is the church's opinion, or what do we teach with regards to the origins of same-sex attraction, right? It's a huge, huge topic, obviously. And there's a lot we could say there. But I think maybe just in brief, the church has never had an official stance on like the origin of it, like it comes from this or that. And dating back to all the way 1975, I was 3 years old one of these documents came out from Rome called Persona Humana, the human person. And it makes this point. It says, even back then, it says we don't make an official declaration on if it's nurture, nature, if it's if somebody's born this way, if it's developed. I think probably the consensus of a lot of people that have worked with people that are same-sex attraction, both men and women, would say that it's kind of a combination of both. In some instances, maybe some people are born with these kind of tendencies, and other people decide, right? Yeah. I've worked with many, many hundreds of both men and women that struggle with it, and they have said this at both. They've said both. I've known people on both sides. But I think with one of the things that's kind of important to point out is that they've never found, as they would say, a quote, gay gene.
Yeah.
Right? And so there was a guy named Dr. Simon LeVay from Harvard, who was himself same-sex attraction. And he said, look, we don't have a gay gene. There's not. He was very quick. He's done a lot of work in this, and he said there's no such thing as this as of yet. Right? From the Catholic standpoint, one of the challenges is that for us, like in Catechism 2202, defines a family as a man and a woman and a child. Right? So what we would say, of course, is that even when a couple would be same-sex attracted, they can still have a deep, have love, but there's a difference between what would be permitted morally with sexual acts.
Okay.
Right. So in other words, the person always has dignity, but we can't condone the acts in the same way we couldn't condone or bless, say, adultery or something along these lines, right? And so, but it's important to point out from the Catholic standpoint, every human person has dignity always, right? So we never could in any way take that away from, nor would we want to. And from the Catechism makes this point, and Pope Benedict, God bless him, over the course of 25 years, when he was working for John Paul II, he wrote 3 documents specifically on this, in 1986, 1992, and 2003. And one of the things that he points out is we always point out 2 things with regards to homosexuality. Number 1, that we love them, we accept them, but number 2, that there is a truth. And being genuinely pastoral is not turning a blind eye to what's right and wrong. Right? It is saying there is a right and wrong. We love you and accept you, but there is still a right and wrong. And that rubs people the wrong way, of course. People don't want to hear this, including many clergy. And so, like for instance, I would very much take a strong position against Dr. James or Father James Martin, who tends to very much sidestep the second piece of that, right? And that can actually lead people very much, if you don't give them the truth piece, it can lead them, as they would say, from the frying pan to the fire morally. And Jesus has very, very, very strong words for this. Like he says, if the blind lead the blind, they both fall into a pit. And he says, if you lead one of these people to stray, especially as a clergy, it's better that a millstone be put around your neck and you thrown into the water. So he's saying, especially to the clergy, I'm going to hold you accountable. Right? And that's also Ezekiel chapter 3. So it's all that to say, like from the family standpoint, there's a lot that we don't know of the origin of this. What we do know is that we love them and accept them, but there is still a right and wrong.
Right. And that's the point that I always make to people, and even to engaged couples or to teenagers and everything, is like, don't think that, especially in marriage between a man and a woman, that now you're just free to do whatever you want to do.
Right, sure.
That's not the case. That's not the case at all. That chastity extends to everybody. And so even within marriage, every act of love needs to be an act of love.
Yep.
Never a selfish act. And so we're all kind of held to, the church isn't just calling out these people or those people or whatever. It is across the board.
Correct.
We all need to be striving to live a chaste life. And just because you're married doesn't mean you just get whatever you want and get to engage in whatever you want to. That every act of love must have love as the object. And so I think that's kind of a misconception that
It's a good point.
that a lot of people have, and that's and especially for marriage and family. I mean, the church says that, like, this is an icon of, and John Paul II made this point too, that this is an icon of the Trinity. This marital relationship is an icon of the Trinity. And so even speaking to engaged couples, it's like, this is a massive responsibility. Marriage is not just something you just walk into just willy-nilly and just let's have fun. Like, it is like, for the church to say, okay, you're married, like, you are now an icon of the Trinity, so now, like, go out and be a witness of the Trinity with your marriage and your family, and make sure everything that you do points back to this union of the Trinity. And that's just something that a lot of people don't know. So people just kind of throw out marriage and the word marriage just to be like, well, it's we want to commit ourselves to each other, and but there's a lot. There's a high calling that as Catholics that we're called to, because God knows ultimately that's where our true happiness comes from. So whether we understand it or not, or understand the church's teachings or not, we always have to trust that our best is what is in God's heart,
Absolutely.
and in the church's heart.
I agree with that.
So
yeah. Very good. One of the things that I guess, because we live in a world where it's not natural but regular, and it happens all the time. You have friends that are same-sex attracted, and because we are so involved in the church, and we are called very Catholic since we work and we're here all the time. So you're very, very Catholic. Yeah. What do you think of the blah, 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 blah? So it's always good to know where the church stands, and it's always good to also be open and loving others, because let's not talk about same-sex attraction. We other people have other things that maybe God teaches in a different way, and we still have to love everybody and be accepted and be wanting them to come to God. But one of the questions that is brought to me, and maybe you can help with that, within the same-sex attraction in marriage and having couples, and you also spoke about, is it something that you're born with? We're not sure. Is it something that happens through time? Is it the same thing if I am a feminine man, but I like women, but I'm feminine, and people think that I'm gay, and I'm confused, so then I like both men and women, and I have relationships or can marry both men or women, and how do I deal with all that? Because I don't think I'm gay, I don't think I'm homosexual, I don't know,
right? So
I'm like, well, maybe then you shouldn't have a relationship if you don't know. So if someone is struggling in that, what is a way that us as Catholics can help or guide or lovingly give advice?
Right, that's a good point. Well, a couple points. So I would say, in brief, to answer your question, right, is we are far more than how we are attracted sexually, our value, right?
Yes.
There's, in other words, when I'm talking to people, I always say, just because this feels natural does not mean it's of your nature.
Exactly.
Something can feel natural, my attraction, but that's not your nature.
Exactly.
And it's a very poor analogy, right? But if you imagine an onion, the first layer of the onion, it may feel natural to be attracted to this person, that person, this multiple different types of sexes, right? Of men, women, whatever. And I've all these things going on in my head. We're attracted to good leaders. We're attracted to potential partners. We're attracted to good friends. We have different types of attractions. And we've talked about before in the podcast, there's emotional attraction, sentimentality, and physical attraction, sensuality.
Yeah.
And so, but we're deeper than that.
Yeah.
We're deeper
Good
than
point.
that, right? So one of the things that Pope Benedict has noted and our faith teaches us is that our nature, as originally created by God, is oriented, ordered, they would say, towards the opposite sex. It's ordered. So we have different types of what's called a disorder. In other words, it's not, a disorder is something that goes off the rail according to how it is ordered, right? It doesn't mean they're malformed or anything like that, or, that they're somehow not human, right? What it means is this, if we follow this path, this does not end as to how God originally had intended it to end, right? And so, and with sexual union, for instance, and so yeah, there would be our nature is far deeper than that. It's far deeper, and like I'll give you an example to your point of what priests are sometimes asked.
Okay.
And the argument would go something like this: Father, here's the deal. God made me this way. And if God made me this way, God must want me to act out this way. So if you say I shouldn't act out this way, you're going against God, not me. Right? It's what's called a syllogism, right? A plus B equals C. So a lot of priests, and I love my brother priests, they have no idea what to say to this, right? Doesn't mean they don't love people. Doesn't mean they don't love the church or believe what the church teaches. It means that they don't have a vocabulary, a lot of them, to speak on this, because this topic is so taboo even in Catholic circles, right? And that's highly unfortunate, because we can't help people, say we as clergy, if we don't know it. And some people, then there's clergy, of course, that believe what the faith teaches, but they're very finger waggy and they stand on a soapbox, which makes it worse because it drives them away. So, for instance, we've had kind of two models over the last, say, 40 years in the Catholic Church to help minister to people with same-sex attraction. There's the courage model, which is very much blessed by the church, by the bishops' conference, right? And Father Bochansky, I think, is the head of this now. And then there's the dignity model, which really is out of step with what we believe. And so in other words, they would say really to love people is to ignore what the Bible says and what our faith teaches. And whereas we would not ascribe to that, right? That's the Dignity USA model. Whereas the courage model would be, it's actually used by the bishops in one of their documents on this topic. So, point being is, I think sometimes we always want to meet people where they're at. And I always say, just listen first. Just listen.
Very important.
And don't come at them. Don't freak out. Including if this is, say, somebody's child that comes to them and drops this in their lap, right? We always just want to listen. I love you. And maybe sit on it for a while. Don't have that conversation. We don't have to solve all these problems now. Sit on it for a while, right? I say problems because a lot of people don't have a vocabulary from this, right?
Correct.
And pray about it. Talk to people you trust, and then come back and have a discussion. But in my take on it, I think one of the challenges is that people, they don't understand a lot, say Americans in general. I know this sounds condescending. I don't mean it to sound this way, but I'm just being truthful. Americans it's hard for them to grasp a world where they can't act out sexually.
Yeah.
Because so much of our culture is based around that.
Yeah.
That we can't act out sexually. Like, well, what is my identity then? Well, actually, man, your identity is far, far, far more than that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I mean, priests and nuns don't act out sexually, and we still have an identity.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you're a priest and a nun, Father. I was like, yeah, but this is, we're not going to die from a lack of sexual activity.
Yeah.
Thanks be to God. Okay? And so, it's hard for them to understand, and they, a lot of times, for instance, again, I'm kind of choosing this at random, is like, for instance, a same-sex couple will often claim the right to adopt a child. Obviously, the Catholic world, we don't condone that right. And they would say, I have a right to a child. We have a right to a child. And whereas we would say, no, you don't, because a child has a right to a father and to a mother. And so those are fighting words, needless to say, in our culture.
Yeah.
But it's one of the reasons why a number of the Catholic charities in the United States have had to get out of the adoption industry, or I should say ministry, helping people because of that reason.
Yeah.
And so we would, that's, again, really a misunderstanding of the word right, because we would say the rights don't just pertain to you.
Correct.
What is the right of a child?
Yeah.
You know, again, to that point, a right of a child, our faith teaches us, would say that they have a right to understand their sexuality, to understand that they have a father and mother, that they have and I would add to that, they have a right to be told and educated on the issue of death, as we've talked about, which a lot of parents don't want to discuss with their children.
Yeah.
That's part of humanity, part of our human nature. And so that, again, Americans, it's sometimes hard for them to wrap their mind around my rights, because what I want is my right. We've talked about that. Rather than, what is the right of the child? They have a right to exist. They have a right to these things. And it's almost like speaking a foreign language.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but even a husband and a wife, some people will even say, we have a right to a child. You know, and it's not a right. The child is always a blessing, no matter what.
That's right.
You know, that just because you're married and maybe with you carry the cross and the pain of not being able to have children. Well, I have a right to children. These are a blessing, always a blessing. You know, not a right.
That's
you
right.
know, always a blessing. You know, going back to your point too of attraction. You know, I remember hearing someone give a talk one time about, especially in our culture right now, and in the culture that our teenagers are growing up in with social media and everything like that, you know, and really now and all the transgender, you know, just all the different things that we see happening. You know, the whole point of attraction is we forget, and to your point with the American culture kind of being hypersexualized, we forget what attraction is, that and fail to teach what attraction is, that we can be attracted. I mean, you're attracted to your friends who are the same sex.
That's right.
You know, because there's something about them that you like.
Correct.
There's something about them that you enjoy. There's about their personality, or even you could just say like, oh my God, like that guy is so cool looking. Or I could look at a woman and just be like, okay, she's beautiful. Like there's something about her that like I want to have a friendship with her. Like I'm attracted to, and how parents now are failing to teach, and the culture right now is failing to teach kids, kind of with all these hormones going all crazy and wonky in them, that it's okay to be attracted to these people, because that's what helps you develop friendships and everything. And but that doesn't mean that you're just, because like now it's just kind of like attraction equals
acting out,
and it's sexual. Like attraction is sexual, and attraction is not always sexual, but that's what it equates to in our culture. And so to train kids, like, it's okay to be attracted to this person.
Correct.
Because, you know, because of you, maybe there's a friendship, which again, too, that is beautiful. The attraction should not equate to sexual, to, you know, sexual acts, even with a male and a female. There's something, because it all should just drive you to a friendship. That has to be the basis of all relationship. Is a friendship in marriage. If you don't have friendship and it's just purely based on the physical, you're
not
in
gonna last,
big
first of all.
trouble.
No, it won't. It won't last.
Big trouble. And even with priests are like, yeah, I could be attracted to these people and that, but it's ultimately for friendship. And, you know, so that's, you know, there's a sacredness to friendship that we're not, that people are kind of scared to talk about. And that attractions are good.
Indeed.
And not always twisted and not always bad. It's just sometimes, what do we do with that attraction? You know, how do we guide people in that way is what's key.
And that's very, very true. And I think our culture will hypersexualize the attractions and in a way, like, bring it to the next level that they have to act out. And it's really so sad, because when two things happen when people develop that habit. Number one, they have as Thomas Aquinas would say, they have a weakened will, so they can't say no.
Yeah,
they go from A to Z in a split second, and so they have a weakened will. But on the other side of that, they are steeped in shame.
Yeah.
And once they spend years steeped in sexualized shame, and again, we see this for both same-sex attracted sometimes and heterosexual couples too. This is across the board, right? I would say it's like sprinting through tar to get out of shame. Like if you talk to them, they'll say their struggle is lust. It's not lust, it's shame, because there's a real love-hate with what they are addicted to doing.
Correct.
And again, to your larger point on chastity, right, is there really is a freedom that happens when people are living a chaste lifestyle. And it's an ongoing project. I mean, the Catechism of the Catholic Church refers to chastity as, quote, an apprenticeship in self-mastery. So it's an ongoing project. What I see a lot with regards to that is when people are younger, it maybe I'm picking this at random, 40, 45 and younger, it's more physical, whereas when they get older, it becomes more emotional, and because people are more lonely now, and they have a lot of times they're what they're attracted to really changes as they age. Again, and that's such a great point you bring up, because that's not a bad thing. Those attractions are not a bad thing. That's a good thing. There's a reason that we want to be with other people, and we want to be close to them, and we want to cuddle with them. I mean, so many single people I know have said, Father, look, I'm lonely, but I want to be with somebody not because of the sex, but because I just want, is it too much to ask for somebody to snuggle with? Right? I mean, and that's a great point. I just want somebody, well, can I go on a walk with somebody, to download my day with them? I mean, these are good desires, right? And so when we talk then about, I think the bigger challenge is when Olivia Molina, who was he was the former head of the John Paul II Institute, I would argue is one of the greatest moral theologians alive today. He said the biggest challenge here is just one of vocabulary.
Yeah.
Where even when we speak about attraction or even the word homosexuality, we may be using that same word with 2 or 3 different definitions.
Correct.
Right.
So right off the bat, we are understanding this from 2 very different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And so an analogy would be the English spoken in the UK and the English spoken in Texas. I mean, these are technically the same language, right? But very, very different.
Yeah.
So, but that's a long-winded echo to your point, Khira.
Yeah.
Well, I got a lot from today. The thing that I love the most, and I think we should all remember, is that, yes, we always need to love our neighbor and be loving towards others, but it's our duty as Catholics to always remember what Jesus has taught us. And it's not that we want to help the other change because they're wrong. It's about spreading the good news and spreading the teachings of God lovingly and accepting everybody as they are. So love your neighbor.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're trying to do. And I always tell people, I was talking about that this weekend at Mass. Some people that we think maybe are they're really, really in the throes of struggling. It may well be that this person is light years closer to God than me.
Correct.
And it may well be that this person has a much higher place in heaven than me.
Great point.
The last will be first, and the first will be last.
Great point.
And so, I ask everybody, I'm like, please pray for me, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the first things that our current Pope said after he became Pope is underscored the dignity of marriage between a man and a woman, but that God loves every single one of us.
Correct.
Right? And so it's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Father.
Cool. Well, listen, don't forget to put soul in your food and give food to your soul. God bless you.